Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. We have posted a very important citizen intelligence report that we need to bring to your attention. The link to this incredible article is in the comment box below, so make sure that you pick it up and save it to a place that you can view it later. This is important because it really is a map of the swamp. And folks, it is not pretty. It is shocking. Just shocking, the corruption that has occurred while we were busy raising our families and tending to our lives. This is just so incredibly disgusting what you will see. Now, Thomas is going to give us a 10,000-foot view of what you're going to see, kind of give you a preparation of what you will find in this amazing report. Thomas, speak to us. Give us a little feeling that we're going to be okay once we get rid of this incredibly stinky swamp.
It is a stinky swamp, isn't it? And the more that those monsters come out and the air hits them, they stink. But that's the beauty of it. What we're seeing now is what we said from the beginning. James Comey is the plug in the swamp. James Comey is going down. The swamp is draining, and the swamp monsters are coming out, and they're all showing who they are. Recently, just in the last few weeks, the Anonymous Patriots, the whole conclave, you and I have had the greatest fortune to meet the people who are supporting Leader Technology. And Michael McKibben himself, the founder of Leader Technology in Ohio, basically the people who discovered the trade secrets that created social networking, the capacity for social networking to happen. So what we had as our experience was somehow, I think you put me onto it through one of your readers who has some patents himself and is a very amazing person. And we then got connected to what you just described, this timeline, which is on the webpage of the Americans for Innovation.
Well, in the article, Thomas, this timeline is in the article that I'm posting, and people can easily access it there.
That's right, and that's what we're saying. Don't miss that, because that's what got us involved. I know that when I first came upon that calendar, I sat for a day and a half reading it. It's the longest thing, but I read it and I said, this is the most amazing indictment of the core criminals in Washington, D.C. that I've ever seen. Days, times, court cases, patent numbers, you name it. All the evidence to clean up this, some of the major players, that would be Robert Mueller, James Comey, Rod Rosenstein,
Hillary Clinton,
and
John
Obama.
Podesta. Oh my gosh, folks, it's just everything. And what was so amazing about this timeline is Thomas and I have been doing this work now for almost 2 years, at least in a public way. And when we opened up the timeline, we saw that it fell perfectly with the scenario that we've been given to you. So it has a Betsy and Thomas approval seal. So that's how important it is that you look at it.
Yes, we could say that back in 1993, first off, Hillary Clinton was a student of a patent attorney who also became the National Security Advisor, the man who wrote the Economic Espionage Act and many other acts and many executive orders for Obama and for other presidents. This man is a hidden, powerful force. If you thought Dick Cheney was the evil force hiding behind the curtains, you haven't met the real evil force. The real evil force is James Chandler III. Hillary was one of his students. Don't forget, Hillary was a corrupt patent attorney in Arkansas. Her dad was part of the mob in Chicago. She was raised in crime. And so when she met Bill Clinton, who had been set up for crime in Arkansas, basically came to be the governor because of agreements of all kinds of egregious things going on in Arkansas, they were a perfect match. But anyway, what we have is in 1993, IBM had a group of people come to them and say, you will do what we say. You will create backdoors in every IBM computer, both in this country and going out of this country, especially going out of this country, so that we could spy on everybody. And IBM colluded with them, and basically the CIA, I call those people the rogue CIA. At that point, they weren't quite the rogue CIA, but they were building into what is now a very clear group of people who have used the cover of the CIA. And remember, the CIA allows illegal activity. So they're all underneath the banner of the CIA, but they no longer work for the CIA. They are working as, let's see, the director of the FBI, the Robert Mueller, he worked in the Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch. We see these corrupt lawyers, and we see this whole group of corrupt patent lawyers who basically took what became our technology today, which is the foundation of all economies on the earth, as well as all military, all run through the internet. There's one thing that doesn't run through the internet. The military has a system, and now the Chinese are trying to build that exact same system as satellites that can ray down Wi-Fi, and it's a military secret. I don't want to go too much into that. But the point is, Hillary Clinton, with her husband, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, went to Russia and did the reset button. Remember the red big button she pushed? At the same time, she convinced the 3 big tech companies to go there and give Putin $1 billion. And they built a city in Skolkovo, outside of Moscow. They call it the Tech City. And basically, we keep catching them up to where we're at. So that needed to be said, because you won't understand the article unless you go back to the history of how it is that Hillary Clinton got connected to stealing patents that later became Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, big parts of Google, and all the other major tech companies that all work through IBM Eclipse Foundation, which we'll talk about a little bit further.
And also to point out, this just doesn't affect social media. The corruption that we are showing you in this article and in the timeline affects a lot more folks. It affects innovators and creators. And the free energy space is another place that we can see where this has been suppressed.
Yes, and when you go to the timeline, you'll see it all revealed.
Yes.
Judicial Watch, I once heard Larry Klayman say that there are 84 confirmed deaths, suspicious deaths around the Clintons. Well, I worry about this person who's coming forth with uranium-1. I hope they have him in a protection program, because this would just be body 85 if we're not careful. And so the amazing thing is that the people who were convicted, his name was Vadim Mikarin, who was a Russian who came to America to run the uranium scam in America, on American soil, while Hillary Clinton was approving, after she'd already approved the sale of the uranium, even before, during, and after, there was Russian mafia, bribery, theft, money laundering, extortion, you name it. They came into this country and they took over the uranium industry. And you're going to say, that's not possible. Well, that's the reason it was hidden. It was only by accident that this came into the news. We all know by the books and the movies and by many articles about uranium-1. We knew it long before this last week, when all of a sudden it hit the fan. So what we're happy to say is the deep state's wheels are coming off their car. Hillary is now, they're going to investigate her in a variety of ways now. There have been ongoing investigations, which we keep mentioning, but now they're going to connect her to all the other things that we've mentioned. For instance, the James Comey-led Democratic attack on Trump directly out of the Democratic National Convention and directly out of the White House. James Comey had at least 6 October surprises that he messed up. And we now are seeing these, and Hillary's being connected to a variety of these. James Comey's been connected to them, and Robert Mueller was called in to collect all the evidence and make sure it disappears, just like Comey did when he was the head of the FBI. All these, for instance, where's the evidence for 911? The commission actually looked at no evidence. So where's the evidence? Who was in charge of that? Robert Mueller. So what we're saying is, this is the point. Go to the timeline. Read it. It's an indictment of Robert Mueller. It's an indictment of James Comey, Bill and Hillary, James Chandler. It's an indictment of Andrew McCabe. It's an indictment of these people who not only steal patents that then became the most weaponized and powerful technological tools in our modern age and control our lives and control our foreign policy, but that it was only a handful of people. These people need to be simply
and
investigated, and indicted, investigated, and probably put in jail, because it is criminal activity we're talking about.
Without yelling at our audience, the point is, folks, these are people, they're flesh and blood people. They've done great harm to the United States. They have committed treason. They're traitors. And we have laws in place to take care of that. That's why it's very important that we live in a country with law and order. Now it is time for us to go collect them. We need to indict them. We need to give them a public trial because, there are a lot of people, Thomas, that are still brainwashed. They're still listening to fake news and they believe the world is good. This is going to be a big shock for people when they see the kind of corruption that has existed in this country.
It is going to be a big shock. Matter of fact, I'm going to talk to a friend in a minute here who hates Trump and is a big supporter of Bernie and would rather have Hillary in office rather than Trump.
You mean we have friends like that?
I have friends of all sorts. I listen to everyone because if you don't listen to both sides, you don't have the story.
Yes, and you're very good about that, yes.
So what is this? I'm going to say to him, hey, what bad stuff do you have to say about Trump now? Think about it. He's got the wall being built. He's getting his tax cuts. He may even give DACA to some people, but let's remember that isn't citizenship. That is simply allowing the deferred aspect of these people for not being prosecuted for being illegal aliens in this country and not being deported. It simply defers that. He isn't saying he's going to give citizenship to them and he's going to get the wall, plus the wall. We see the prototypes being built as we speak. We see that he knocked down the Trump Tower server nonsense, which I didn't know that Hillary had tweeted out about that. And she had basically accused Trump of her Russian connections because Hillary was so bummed that James Comey, whose brain doesn't work very well, wasn't able to pull off the October surprises. So Hillary had to come out and start accusing Trump of Russian connections. Never before, ever, had he, in the election, did she, up until the time that then the October surprises started to unfold in June and July of that summer before October. And so, the Trump Tower server had already been debunked by the time Hillary was saying, Trump has connections with Alpha Bank and he gets paid by them. And this is the proof. And here it is. Go to Franklin Ferro's article in the Slate. She recommended a bogus article in the Slate that she knew James Comey paid for, which was supposed to be an October surprise but got released too early. You see, that's the problem.
Well, you know what the problem too is that regular people out here, we do not live in a world where psychopaths are around us. These people are psychopaths.
Yes, they are. Now, in that article with the picture of Hillary with the word fraud with the big Facebook F on it that you have so beautifully posted, and I think that's going to be the symbol for this video, I think that it is absolutely crucial that we understand that. And this is a long story. I want to get back to the...
Oh, good. We're going to tell the Hillary Facebook story now?
Yes.
Okay.
The Hillary Facebook story is she knew about Facebook from the beginning, that they had stolen the trade secrets and the IP, the intellectual property, and the copyrights, and all the content was stolen by the very patent attorney that represented Leader Technology that then went over and gave it to IBM in the IBM Eclipse Group. And then out of this Eclipse Group came, like I say, Twitter, Nokia, a lot of Microsoft, a lot of course, Facebook, Google, YouTube, and many other groups sat and waited for IBM to give out this open source code. Oh, let's see, the greatest invention in modern times, being able to have scalable areas where people can, once they sign onto a system like Facebook, which is basically everything, folks. That's your Google Documents. That's everything. Almost everything you do, if it entails being on the internet and having other people come in and out, was the invention of Leader Technology. That was stolen and given out as open source code by IBM. Okay, that's insane. That's not possible. IBM is in business to make money. They created IBM Eclipse with a $40 million gift to a foundation. And so this foundation then supposedly has all the people who had what was called groupware. So Lotus and Microsoft and Apple, all these groups had these groupware interactive systems that really couldn't go scalable on the level of the internet for social media. So that was what James Chandler gave to IBM Eclipse. And then that became Facebook. Now, Hillary knew this from the beginning because she was one of his major students. She was from the beginning, a crooked patent attorney, and still is. She has been involved with stealing many patents, according to some people, and we are going to be doing a talk soon with John Barnwell, who's going to tell us about one of those that Hillary stole, which became one of the biggest patents in aeronautics. But anyway, Hillary's been involved in many of those. So she knew all about Facebook. So when Facebook, was sued and Mark Zuckerberg has been shown to be a fraud again and again and again, it's no surprise to anyone, but they don't know that this goes back to the IBM Eclipse group, which Hillary was completely aware of. Obama worked with all those people. That's who gave him his $2 billion for his library and billions more for the fraud of his library, just like the Clinton Library became the Clinton Foundation, complete fraud, $2 billion. Obama beat them out the door. Obama had $2 billion in his library before he left the White House because the Silicon Valley warlord cyber frauds are actually all supported, as we've demonstrated again and again, through In-Q-Tel, the Science Applications International Corporation, Leidos, DARPA, all the companies involved in DARPA. Basically, Google is DARPA. And Facebook and all those social network groups that came out of Leader Technologies innovation, that then became the best field for social experimentation for the CIA, the FBI, and anybody else who wanted to get on board with Facebook. Because basically, I don't even know if Mark Zuckerberg has ever shown up for a day of work in his life. I'm pretty sure now that I've researched this pretty well that I don't think Mark Zuckerberg can write code. He says he hasn't written code since he wrote the original innovation, except that now and then he writes it for fun. So the man who wrote the best code in the whole world, supposedly, and has credit for these social networks, doesn't write code. And even dropped out of college because he really was a failure in all senses. So these are stooges. And Leader Technology and their friends, the friends of Leader Technology, Americans for Innovation, and all their shareholders and all the people who come together to create this timeline, have everything on there to indict the Clintons and indict these patent, we would call it, it's not really patent theft, it's patent manipulation, because it's legal to steal patents in America. The government can steal them.
Yeah, but Thomas, I'm sorry, I know you can go on and on here, but I have to say it at this point it's very disappointing to me. Here I am, a middle-aged woman, retired teacher, and along with you and our group of similarly people, retired teachers, we have cultural historians, but we're folks that we like research and we love writing term papers. Why is it falling on us? Where are the military that are supposed to protect us against domestic threats to our country? Have they all just given in to this big mafia group in Washington?
Well, technically, the military, up until Obama's changing of the National Defense Authorization Act, was not allowed to work in America, and especially not broadcast propaganda, but now it's legal.
But aren't they supposed to protect us from domestic?
The FBI.
The FBI.
Correct.
Oh, hallelujah. We need to get rid of the FBI and start from scratch if that's who is out here to protect us.
I totally agree.
I mean,
name any real convictions that they've done.
I know. Where are they?
Well, look, the one conviction of this 8-year-long or 10-year-long total control, mafia control of uranium in this country. It took them 8 years to prosecute them. Then they tried to hide it. They put Mickerin in jail for 48 months. But what really was going on? America, through Bill Clinton, had sold out our entire nuclear program to Putin himself. If you want to talk about Russian collusion, it's the fact that Bill Clinton started to buy uranium from the ICBMs that were being decommissioned from the satellite countries around the USSR, the former Soviet Union. As Kazakhstan, as even Ukraine, but especially Kazakhstan and many other countries that are now countries separate from what was the USSR, they decommissioned them, and Putin took that uranium, and what do you think he did with it? He sold it to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton sold us out. If the Russians are our enemy, and it's all about the nuclear bombs, then Bill Clinton must go to jail for being a treasonous
SOB.
non-American, anti-constitutional, anti-Bill of Rights
Wake
enemy
up.
of America.
These
No
are
one could be a
enemies.
bigger enemy. Instead of buying that enriched uranium and plutonium, he should have been decommissioning all those ICBMs, just as Russia decommissioned all of them except in Russia itself, are all decommissioned. Why didn't we decommission the same amount at the same time instead of selling our uranium rights? Remember, uranium is the most expensive, plutonium is one of the most expensive substances on the earth, way more expensive than gold. And platinum is this nonsense with uranium, which isn't even needed, and these bombs aren't needed to have a deterrent against a country that we work hand in glove with. They are our friend. That's why Hillary did the reset. That's why she went over and started the Tech City. That's why she also went to China. Bill and her went to China. And that's why we gave all of our trade over to China and the World Trade Organization. Notice, Trump just said, we're getting out of the World Trade Organization. It's rigged. We have said that. We also said if Trump gets out of the world, I've said this so many times, I'm blue in the face, get out of the World Bank, the IMF, and the World Trade Organization. Once we're out of that, he got out of UNESCO the other day, just dropped them. Why? Because they were stealing our money and not giving it to any Christians. Only feeding radical Islamic terrorists and Muslims who could become that, because why? We just bombed their countries. Obama bombed them. They should all be our enemies. They absolutely should all be our enemies to what we've done to them as a country. And we sit back and we do nothing. So go to the timeline. You will see also the convictable evidence, the indictments for Obama himself, for many people, because this group that has been for 17 years have spent their legal costs have been over $10 million to get depositions, to depose these people, to depose everyone they could, everyone involved with the Facebook theft of their trade secrets, as we'll call it, since I don't have really the technical language to describe it as well as. Hopefully someday we'll be able to get Michael McKibben on our show live so that we can get him telling us the very details, because this is the most convincing person you've ever spoken to. He's for 17 years, he's been fighting against this cabal.
I'd love for him to sit there with Mark Zuckerberg and each of them tell us how they developed this.
That is what we would like. We would like the biggest show, Alternative News, to have these two on. And if Mark Zuckerberg is the creator of Facebook, then he needs to describe the source code that he used to do so, and just even describe the system itself. And then they need to hear the real creator describe it.
Can I do it with my hoodie?
Yes, he'd have to have his hoodie, and he would be sweating, and he would be saying "dude" so many times because
he's a fraud, and we got to get beyond that. He's a fraud.
So here's the deal:
what?
Hillary Clinton went to him, and with U.S. taxpayer money through the GSA, paid 7 different times $100,000 to Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, which is a fraud, to create what they called the template for winning the election. In other words, the algorithms that made sure that Hillary came up many, many more times than Trump, that negative Trump stuff always came up and positive Hillary Trump stuff came up, plus all those ads that they say really were Russian ads from 470 different companies who were putting up these ads. They've now found out the only Russians they can connect to those lies that Mark Zuckerberg told about the $100,000 coming from the Russians.
Well, it's more than...
Came from RT and Sputnik. Hello? That's not illegal. Now, the real deal is Hillary stole taxpayer money to pay Facebook to meddle in the election, and Mark Zuckerberg was part of this, and he came out with his lies to cover his tracks. We also know exactly how they did this. We explained this from the Global Engagement Center and how they did this, because the head of the Global Engagement Center, the Board of Broadcasting Governors, came out and said it when he left in absolute disgust, along with his 3 top IT guys. So Hillary used 7 times that $700,000, actually it's more than $700,000 of taxpayer money to slant the election towards her through Facebook. And who do you think wrote what they called the template for winning the election? That's right.
You're not going to believe this.
Go ahead, tell them, Betsy.
It's a Russian.
It's a Russian. Oh my gosh. There was Russian collusion to meddle in the election. And U.S. taxpayers, through Hillary, who is going to say she doesn't remember it, but 7 times Hillary used government money. Now, how many people are involved in that corruption to use GSA government money to pay for Hillary's? But let's remember now, this is amazing. Get ready for this. They now know that the Russian Trump dossier, the discredited dossier, not one piece of information in there has ever been proven to be true, and every piece of information that is anything that can be proven has been proven to be false and a big fat lie. Of course, they paid their lawyer, as Trump said, $5 million, but really over 2 years it was over $8 million they paid Mark Elias, and Hillary didn't know that. Hillary didn't tell Mark Elias to pay for the Russian for the Fusion GPS oppositional research on Trump. She says she knows nothing about it. Podesta knows nothing about it. No one at the DNC approved as much as $8 million for the fake Trump dossier. Now, we don't know that all that money went for the fake Trump dossier, but one thing we do know, because we've said it over and over, we know exactly how the Trump dossier was produced, and we know who produced it, and we know whose idea it was and when it was created. We've said it over and over again.
Can you talk a little bit about the Club of Growth? Because you've mentioned this a couple of times offline.
Okay, well, there's one article today that says no Republican paid. It didn't start with the Republicans. That's a lie. That was a rumor given out by Fusion GPS off the record, that it started with a Republican. And then a Democrat started paying for it, and that's where it ended. That's what the lie was given out on the sly as a leak by Fusion GPS. That's a lie, probably. Now, we said from the beginning, if any Republicans were involved in the anti-Trump dossier creation, it would have been Jeb Bush. Why? Because he's the Bush criminal family. They do that. They've been doing that forever. That's standard operating procedure. But they would have hidden it. They would have given it to one of the 3 anti-Trump organizations that were out there yelling how much they hated Trump, begging everyone to support them. It's called the Club for Growth. They came out and they named their donors, and they had tens of millions of dollars, and they put forth some of those negative ads, a lot of the negative ads, and so we know that could have been them. We don't know for a fact that there was any Republican involved. But we now have heard the rumor that John McCain at the end put in $50,000. So the FBI's commitment of $100,000 for the last installment, the 17th installment of the Trump dossier, would be paid for. And some say that it was John McCain who put up $50,000. Now, it might have been John McCain, because remember, now,
well, what I say is that the reason that Percy Coy has come out to show, okay, fine, here are the records, we got the money from the DNC, is that they have a bigger customer that they're trying to shield and protect. Who is that? Who is bigger than Hillary?
Well, it could be the Republicans, and it could be the Club for Growth, because those were actually, that is not an NGO, that is not a 501c3. That's not even a super PAC, so they could do whatever they wanted. There won't be any harm in that coming out. So that's not who they're trying to protect. Would it be Jeb Bush? No, Jeb would have given through one of those organizations. So here's who they're protecting, because we all know this. They represented Venezuela. They represented the Russians. They were lobbyists. They came and created false information to try to get the Russian sanctions dropped. They lobbied for Ukrainians who were actually pro-Russians. They lobbied for the Russians. These people, as I said from the beginning, GPS is a hired gun, and they're usually hired by the worst criminals. They've been hired by the mafia. They've been hired by people who got caught in hedge funds, illegal hedge funds deals. They've been caught in offshore accounting that's illegal. They've been caught working with Venezuela. They've been caught all over the place, because that came out in the Panamanian Papers.
Okay. How about that for a summary?
No, we'll steer not to the major point.
Okay.
The major point in your article, which does link to the timeline, but the major point is that Hillary Clinton used a Russian to hack you could call it hack, write a program with absolutely... Mark Zuckerberg will know nothing of this Russian, though, by the article that you posted shows who this Russian was and how he has done everything for Facebook. He is so thick into Facebook, it is ludicrous. And he wrote the template. So, are they going to admit that? If they do, they're going to have to admit that Eric Schmidt said publicly 3 times that I heard with my own ears that he had already done that for Hillary in the past, and that he was doing it in this last election against Trump, supporting Hillary. He rewrote his algorithms to support Hillary. But the big deal here, and the funny deal is, the Trump dossier, which we can explain again, came out of the Democratic National Committee when they found out they'd had a breach on December 14th, 2015, Podesta wrote in his emails that there has been a breach. We must do damage control. And in another one, a few weeks before that, he states, our weakest point in this election is Hillary's connection with uranium-1. Hillary's connection with selling uranium to Russia, and Hillary's direct collusion with Russia over the tech city, and other direct collusion because of the money given, the $145 million. They speak of this. They say, this is our biggest problem. We're not going to win the election because of this. And then they state what they're going to do. Damage control is going to be the following. We're going to accuse Trump of everything we're doing. We're going to say he's in bed with the Russians. Podesta's note says...
Well, because they're not creators. They have to steal people's patents, and so they had to steal their own storyline and use it against their opposition.
Yes, so when this came up, with Comey there, I will bet money that Comey was there at that Democratic National Committee. If not, he was completely informed afterwards. When Alexandra Chalupa said, I can go to Ukraine and I can not only... I can get information to set up a false ledger for Manafort and show that he's a Russian, because we fear that Manafort is going to be the campaign manager for Trump, and Manafort's the most powerful campaign lobbyist, propagandist in the world. We can't have that happen. I'll get that, and I'll create the Russian dossier through a British agency. So let me just get working on that, and I believe at that moment, in December, is when Fusion GPS was hired. It is a lie, in my opinion, and this is speculation, that they only started to work for the Democrats in April. That's a lie. That's when Comey lost control of Franklin Forrest's Slate article on the fake server. When the dossier that they knew that they had already produced, because it had already been produced long before it started to be leaked to the press in April, and they leaked it to the press verbally through Christopher Steele himself, once on the phone to 5 news agencies, bad news agencies, fake news agencies. And then he came over here because it wasn't effective enough, because though everyone was talking about the content of it, no one had a copy of it. So he came over and he gave them a verbal, complete rundown on it to 5 companies. C and BuzzFeed asked to be given a verbal explanation of what's on the 35 pages, the 17 installments showing that Russia had complete control of Trump and Carter Page and Paul Manafort and Larry Cohen and Trump and everyone. So that's what's in there. And they even, in the last installment, name who hacked the DNC. Okay? Here's the deal. As you said from the beginning, Betsy, Orbis, who Fusion hired, Christopher Steele, a shamed ex-British spy who hadn't been in Russia for years, needed a little bit of money. So they always do that. They farm it to foreign intelligence agencies, saying that keeps them from culpability. Wrong. Plus, he was a private corporate intelligence agency who only have 2 people in his company. 2 people, 2 very bad British spies. That's who we're talking about, Orbis Industrial. And they're the ones who came up with the Trump dossier with the help of Alexandra Chalupa, because they were so out of touch that they couldn't even name the people in Russia. Notice no one in Russia is named. They just named the positions they held. They don't even know their names. They didn't even go to Russian newspapers and read to see the names of the people who they are quoting. It's just disgusting. Any third grader who could not read this dossier and see that it was just complete garbage is an idiot.
Thomas,
Sorry.
final word.
No, there's no final word on
That's
this.
it. Look, folks, it's a scary thing. Please drill down on that.
No. It's wonderful.
No, it's a
The
scary...
Trump dossier has been
No,
blown apart.
I know, but it's a scary thing to look at this timeline and realize that all this evil has been going on while you were asleep. That's what's so awful about it. But you need to open it up and you need to see who the players are, the cons that they've been running, the corruption and the crime, the treason, everything. You need to see it.
And Betsy, like you say, when you look at the timeline, see how you fit in it. You may be able to add pieces to the puzzle so that when this is taken up, as we hope, in the special investigator that's going to be appointed to investigate Robert Mueller, you see, that's when it will all come undone, because Robert Mueller was the fetch and step boy for Hillary to take the uranium from America to Russia to make sure that Russia would buy it from her. Because she got $145 million, so she used the head of the FBI to deliver it to Putin. These are crimes against the state. This is treason. If they are serious that Russia is our enemy, then they have colluded with the enemy in the worst possible way that they could, not only with uranium and nuclear energy and nuclear weapons, but also with tech weapons, because Hillary was at the core of all of that too. And it's proven by the fact that she has Facebook and Google on her side in the last election. And if you want to talk about meddling in the election, it would be all those companies that she had contracts with. And we now have the proof in the article you posted that Hillary somehow used government money for her own purposes. And oh, that's right, Comey had agreed, get ready folks, Comey had agreed, this was just released recently, that he was going to pick up the expenses of the DNC for what they paid for the dossier. Well, wait. Then why wasn't he picking up the expenses for the unnamed Republican who spent money on the dossier? If this dossier was so friggin' important, and the 17th installment was specifically for James Comey to name Alexei Gubarev as the criminal who hacked, which is fake, who hacked the DNC, which he didn't, and he's the one who brought all this to light because his two lawsuits in America and in Britain after Christopher Steele have brought all these things to light. That's where this has come from, lawsuits. So lawsuits. Support leader technology. I don't know if anybody at Americans for Innovation collect money for leader technology, but their legal expenses have been literally over $10 million. So support them in any way you can. Go to the timeline, add pieces, send it to Betsy, show us your part of the puzzle, add to this long
because we're
list of
happy
crimes.
or if you have substantial information that can add to the timeline, we're happy to receive your information. If it's good and you're a good writer, we have a number of places that we can post it as articles, because once your information is in an article form with a URL, then you can send it out to your friends, you can tweet it out. It's something that can travel through cyberspace, so we encourage you to do that. And if we are able to talk on an audio for our YouTube followers, then we'll do that. Thomas, but your final word has to be a final word.
It's a positive final word. As soon as the special investigator is appointed to go after Mueller, guess what comes down? Not only Uranium One, not only the meddling in the election, not only the corruption of the DNC and the $6 billion illegally received. That's what's on their server.
How about Facebook and Google?
That's where I'm going
I want
next.
them all gone. They're all fraudulent. They all use taxpayer money. They need to get the hell out of our country.
All the patent infringements all go down.
Yes.
Because the special... who was there with IBM Eclipse?
Right.
Robert Mueller goes back...
Right.
Okay, 911.
Eric Schmidt is not bigger than the American people, nor is Zuckerberg.
911 must be reinvestigated because Robert Mueller was in charge of the FBI investigation.
Thomas, they can take the report that we gave them, that H.P. Heidner gave them, and they don't have to start from scratch to do this. The work has been done by citizens.
The work has been done. The indictments, the information for the indictments have been prepared. That's what this timeline is. Thank you. Thank you, Americans for Innovation, because what you have done is the same thing we're trying to do, which is bring out the crimes, show you who the criminals are, and folks, be happy. The wheels are falling off of the deep state. If we see Hillary Clinton indicted and go to jail, we have won the revolution.